All right, good afternoon. So this afternoon we're gonna go ahead and finish up a little bit of wet sanding on this, and then we're gonna go ahead and get to polishing. So let's see, last time we were using 800 grit and I spent about an hour and a half on this. If you guys have been following and watching, you know all the stuff that I'd taken off of this already. There was a lot of spots here from sitting on your leg and whatnot. And then right here, there was a really big dull spot from your arm, as well as right here and down in here. And we're getting ready to work on these patches here, which were really big before I started on it with the 800 grit. And that is all from the anti-scratch pad and a little bit of moisture getting inside of it from the humidifier. So there's a little bit of water staining inside of it, but there's no structural damage, nothing swelled or come loose or anything like that. There's nothing structural of it. It's just all finished stuff. So that's what we're trying to address, is all the little spots that I couldn't get out with wet sanding it with the 800 grit. So what we're gonna do is I have some 2000 grit in here, some 3000 grit, and then I still have the 8000 soaking too. I have 600, 800, 1000, all that. We don't need to go that aggressive on it. The other thing too, if you guys want to do this kind of stuff at home and you're wet sanding, and when it gets to the polish part, if you have a cordless drill, you don't need a 20 volt, it's a little overkill, but if that's all you have, I brought the 12 volt home, for example. You can use that with one of these adapters, and that will give you the option to use wet sanding paper on the sponge, or regular sandpaper, and or the polishing bonnet, or you can put the foam pad on it. And if you don't have a drill and you just want to do it by hand, you can still use all that stuff, but you use it on a handheld device like this, which today we are going to use this for the compound part. So I haven't got to this yet. I don't want to get this into this pad because I only brought one pad home. This is a Roops Ultrafine, so the white is ultrafine, yellow is medium, blue is coarse. I have two different polishers, actually three different polishers at the shop for the cars. One takes this pad, but it's longer and bigger, and you don't need all that here for the guitar. The other one is a rotary. The smaller one that this fits on is a DA like this. This is a dual action, and my brain was like, hey, let's see if that fits. It does. So this is just a sander, but it's a dual action. So same thing as the Roops or the DeWalt version, which is what I have for polishing. So, and then the rotary spins with these kind of bonnets. So that's what you do with your heavy cut and all that. Then you jump in, three-step it with different pads. By the time you're done buffing your car, or your guitar for that matter, you probably have rubbed it down 4 or 5 times. But I don't want any of that compound in this, because I'm going to be using guitar polish only for the final polish on it. And again, if you don't have any equipment, you can do it by hand or with the drill. So there's just some options for you before we get started, but I'm going to use this just because there's only a few little spots on here that we're actually going to work on with more aggressive sandpaper, and then I'll hit it with the compound before I polish it. So let's go ahead and get a look at what I'm going to be trying to work on here, because it's easier for me to see from this angle here instead of trying to flip the guitar around and show you. So right in this area, there was a lot of look like water spots, and I don't know if you can see them now, but there's still just a few there. As I go, you can see, and it's nice and smooth now. Before I was working on it with the 800 grit, you could hear it every time you went across it with your finger. You could hear it, you know what I mean? So I got it nice and smooth now. So I don't want to try to take any more off because what is in there is now in the finish, but we will try to lighten it some more. But over in here, in this area, let's see, I'll zoom in a little bit. So we have a couple little areas. It looks like maybe some super glue or something got there. Same with right here. So we're gonna hit this real lightly with 3000. And right here, the pick guard's gonna cover a good chunk of that gouge, but there's a little bit of scratching going on there. So I'm just meticulous. So I'm trying to make this as nice as possible. Right in here, there's a couple little scratches. There you go. You can see this one. So we'll work in this area a little bit. And then of course on the back, we have that spot right there. And that was the worst of it. And it was really super lifted and open porous, like looking, you know, like a sponge. And I worked that with 800 or 8000, and it's nice and smooth now. You can barely hear it. It sounded like sandpaper yesterday. And then again, this is really lightened up, so that will probably finish coming out there. And then as well as this spot right here, I should be able to get a good majority of that to disappear. I think if anything, you might lightly see a little bit here and here when I'm completely done with it. And then right here in this section, there's a couple little scuffs that I got to work on. And then over by the input jack, there's just a couple, and it's really hard to see them on the film here. But I did get the headstock. I did the neck too. It feels nice and clean and smooth now, so we'll polish that as well. But I got the headstock worked with 8000 grit, and it is nice and smooth, but you can still see this spot here where the tuner reacted with the finish. And then as I go back and forth, if you look right here, you'll see a couple horseshoe marks where it left an imprint, and you can't feel it, but if you look hard enough, you'll find them. Again, this is a player's grade guitar, and it's in immaculate condition, in my opinion, for something that gets played. This isn't a case queen. It's not a wall hanging trophy or nothing like that. So this guitar got used, not abused. And what we're doing now is we're just cleaning it up and making it look the best we can, so I can put it up on Reverb for sale for Kevin. So we're gonna go ahead and get to wet sanding now. I guess I'll start on the back because the neck rest, everything, once the back's done, it's just easier to work on the front. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the 3000 grit and work on these bad spots here around this back edge here and right in there. So I pre-soaked them. That way the material, because they're like a fabric material, the sandpaper is on, plus some of them have a foam backing. So it's nice and wet. Just dab it in the water a little bit. You don't want to make it running off the guitar and stuff, but always be ready to start grabbing drips when they go, because you only want it in one area. So just start working it in little circle motions. And then after a few seconds, you'll start seeing the water get like little tiny bubbles in it, which is actually some of the finish. It turns kind of like chalky white. So as you can see here, this is doing its job. So now you can see that milky white. That tells you that you're doing what you intended to do. You're wet sanding this down. So go ahead and then wipe that off and dip your paper in. Well, you can't see that on the paper or on the camera, but just smack your sandpaper in there, rinse it off, because you want to keep it clean, because you don't want any buildup of paint or anything like that on it. So you see that did exactly what I needed it to do. It completely smoothed that out, leveled it out. And now it's ready to polish, but I'm gonna go ahead and take it a step further and go to that 8000 and polish that. So when I do the final polish, it comes out perfect. You don't see any sanding marks. Not that you probably would if I polished it now with 3000, but we're gonna go ahead and work on this spot here now. So you can see this was the worst spot of all of them. So again, just a little tap tap. See, not that much water. And you're not pushing down. You just keep force on it, but don't push down. Just like the weight of your hand and let the sandpaper do the work, because you're not trying to remove the finish. All we're trying to do is get the blemish out. And if you don't know when to stop, just like I showed you, once the water, you'll feel it too. It starts to get a little thicker feeling. And you'll want to go around the edge of your spot too and just kind of blend it, you know. So now I'm going to go ahead and just wipe that off. I'm going to go ahead and tap my paper, set it on my rag to dry. Now, as you can see here, I'm not going to want to go much more than that at all, because this was already raised real bad, and I had smoothed that out with the 8000 grit. Now it's down to where you can just see a little bit of tiny pores in it, and that's what I was trying to say. You'll probably see a little bit when I'm finally done with it, but I think it's going to come out really good, especially after I do the 8000, which we're not going to spend much time on it, and then we're going to go ahead and machine polish it. So let me go ahead and work on this area right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I'm just going to assume that you did, and if not, maybe the last time. And I'm just working little circular motions around in that one area. I'm not trying to use the whole pad. I'm kind of running at an angle, and it does dip just a little bit right there. So I'm trying to use like half of the pad, and I'm not pushing hard, just letting it do the work. Go ahead and tap and get me a little bit more water, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these ones. Alright. Yep, I think that'll do real good on that. Let's see. We got some pretty good scratches right there. Looks like a buckle rash. So let's see if I can get you guys to go back over there. Yeah, you'll see that. So right in this area, there are some scratches. Try my best to do some different angles so you guys can see the before and afters of this. So again, we're not going to spend a lot of time. This is just superficial. And we're using 3000 grit, which is probably the consistency of like less than a paper towel. Yeah, still like rough toilet paper. If you have to stop when you're traveling and you go to the truck stop or rest area, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so now that I'm looking at it, I can still, in this area right here, I can kind of see a line from that anti-scratch pad, and there's a little bit faint one right in here, and there isn't too much I'm going to be able to do about that. Hopefully that will polish out. You can faintly see a shadow of it here too. I really don't want to keep going too nutty fruitcake on this, so we're going to go real light and just kind of blend the rest of this in. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm putting even less pressure on it than when I was trying to fix the imperfections. Because right now, basically, I'm just trying to take out superficial scratches in that mark from the scratch pad. All right, let's see what happened here. Nope. That's why I didn't want to keep going. And I didn't get real aggressive. So you're still going to see those shadow lines. We'll see what happens after I get done polishing it out. But as far as the 3000 grit goes, I think I'm done with that. And I'm going to skip the 2000 because the 3000 did what we wanted to. So now I'm going to go back here to the 8000. I guess I could just use this too to hold it. And basically all I'm doing is just trying to get out sanding marks from the 3000 with the 8000. So I'm basically buffing it. I'm not going to use that. And this is what I did yesterday for an hour and a half. And basically what this is doing is, if you're like clay magic your car, so what you're doing is you're removing all the grime that's on the paint that a typical car wash won't take off, like tree sap, bug crap, tar, just road grime that doesn't come off. You can feel the grittiness, like on the guitar where your arm rests and it leaves that white looking faded area. It's actually a buildup of grime, and if you just take your time and work this, you can see, as obvious, I showed you, that you work it off and it looks polished before you even polish it, because you're using a sandpaper that is literally like toilet paper. So, just for yits and giggles, what I'm going to do is I'm going to polish the back of this, and then we'll work on a couple spots on the front, and we'll cut this video off and I'll finish it, and then we'll show you the end result, because it's going to take me quite a long time, especially around the edges, the neck, the headstock, and around the bridge and stuff. So we'll just do a couple more spots on it so you guys get the idea of what you got to do, and just know it. I mean, it takes a lot of time. All you got to do is invest time, and then you can take and revive an older guitar that's been played a lot, and you'll see here at the end. Let's go ahead and get some polish on the back of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the compound on here, and this I'm just going to do by hand, and I'm only going to do the areas that I did really heavy. And again, I'm only working on the areas that I got aggressive with, because compound still has a grit in it, and we don't want to scratch it. So there we go. Now that's just the first step there on that end. I'll get a little bit more over here. And then the machine polish will take out any of the flat spots when we finally basically glaze the guitar with the wax and polish it. And just make sure you always do circular motions and overlap. Alright, I think that's enough of that. We're going to go ahead and get this compound wiped off. We're going to get a couple clean rags and fire up the little machine. So that looks pretty good already. I'm going to go ahead and compound this back edge a little bit more, or I missed it. There you go. So see where the one spot was really bad and lifted? You have to hold it in just the right spot to look at it now and see it, but it's going to be just a little tiny spot compared to the way it was when I started. And the same here, I mean, all this was just dulled out. It took a long time to finesse that out, but it was worth it. So now let's go ahead and glaze this thing. Yep, looks like overkill, but this foam pad is gonna suck it up. So first thing you wanna do, get this thing turned down to 1, because we don't want compound or wax flying everywhere. Get it kind of worked in. Turn her on. You can always set your pad up so you're not collecting dirt on it. Let me grab a couple clean cloths down here. Okay, here we go. Time of truth. Polish this wax off and this is what it's gonna look like. Now I will hand wax it again, obviously, probably 1 or 2 more times before it's completely put back together, because I'll be working on the sides and the front. And I'll have to touch it and get it all dirty again. Start all over, but at least I know here that it's all done. Looks like I got a little more to do right here. So let's go ahead and hit that again. Alright, let me just hit this real quick with some cleaner to take off the residue. And we'll see what it looks like here. So there you go. What do you think of that? I think that turned out just absolutely beautiful. And again, what you hear sliding around in there is the cable for the 9-volt battery. I have the battery bag out because I washed it. It was full of dust and dirt, so I scrubbed it with a toothbrush, let it dry out. We'll put a new battery in it when we put it back in there, but I would say that turned out really good. So let's see where this video is, and I'll decide if I'm gonna cut you guys off or not. Oh yeah, we're at 24 minutes. So I explained to you guys what I had to do here on the top, and I have to repeat that process all the way around the sides, down the neck and the headstock, until everything is fully polished, just like I showed you here on the back. So I'm gonna cut this video short now and go ahead and finish this guitar up and get all the rest of the wet sanding and polishing done on it. And then we'll do a video putting the strings back on it and stuff like that. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe. These videos are real hard for me to try to do because a lot of this stuff takes hours and I'm not real big into editing. So I'll just give you guys little jots of stuff and then we'll stop. And if you guys don't like it, then I'll quit doing it. If you do like it, give me a thumbs up. Till then, I don't know what's gonna happen.